What's it like to be on this vessel? And you've actually been on this vessel, right? And you've been, is that right? What's going on?
I've been on the very sub that's in distress right now, and I did take it to the bottom of the sea, and I did see the Titanic from it. And, you know, a lot of talk is going on about the safety of the vessel. It is a very, very risky proposition. There's anyone who booked this trip knew it was going to be risky. You sign a lengthy waiver that lists really 100 ways to die, things that could go wrong. So everyone walks into this with open eyes. It reminds me of the early space program where people did everything to keep the astronauts safe, but things went wrong multiple times. And you go on and you hope for the best and you're prepared for the worst.
The man you just saw talking is Mike Reiss, a famous television writer that not only wrote for The Simpsons, but he was actually at one point an executive producer of The Simpsons as well. And oddly enough, he actually traveled on this Titan sub before down to the wreckage of the Titanic. In fact, he was aboard one of the only successful missions down to the Titanic in that same Titan sub that we now know suffered from a catastrophic implosion, claiming the lives of all 5 people on board. Now, I know that some of you are sitting there asking the question, well, why is this so odd? And some of you are sitting there already knowing where I'm going with this one. Now, personally, I am more of a South Park kind of guy, but The Simpsons has a special place in television history. The Simpsons was one of the first mainstream adult cartoons. And if you know anything about The Simpsons, you know that they have a long, successful track record of making predictions. If it happened, chances are it already happened on an episode of The Simpsons. From celebrity deaths to presidential elections, The Simpsons has predicted so many things. It's so bizarre. It is so bizarre. It's almost as if the writers know the future, or they know about big events years before they happen. Well, online today I see a lot of people spreading clips from a Simpsons episode that seems to predict what ultimately happened here with this Titanic sub. But you see, this actually runs deeper than just a simple prediction. In fact, people are passing around clips of an episode that, the episode is odd. In the episode, Homer Simpson and someone else, they travel down in little subs to a shipwreck trying to get treasure, and Homer Simpson, he gets stuck while down there, and his sub is running out of oxygen. And listen, of course, I can see the similarities between that episode and what happened here with this Titanic sub, but that's not the weird part. Everyone is focusing on the wrong episode, ladies and gentlemen. That's the crazy part. Even though, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily call it a prediction, but this episode does have a scenario within it that is similar to what has happened with the OceanGate Titanic sub. But that's not the weird part. You got to dig even deeper. Now, we know that Simpsons episodes often contain weird predictions, either on purpose or by accident. And what else do we know? We know that, oddly enough, one of the writers and executive producers of The Simpsons just so happened to have traveled on this Titan sub last year? Well, here's where it gets weird. I want to bring you to a episode of The Simpsons called Simpson Tide. Now, Simpson Tide was one of 2 season 9 episodes that was executive produced by Al Jean and Mike Reiss, who together were the showrunners for the 3rd and 4th seasons. Although Jean would later return to run the show, it was the last episode that Reiss received an executive producer credit for. So this episode of The Simpsons, called Simpson Tide, it just so happened to be the last episode that Mike Reiss ever produced. Now you're sitting there like, okay, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, the last episode of The Simpsons that Mike Reiss worked on, it's not the one that people are passing around, no. But the very last episode that he ever worked on is an episode where Homer Simpson is in a submarine that winds up leaking. If you ask me, this goes beyond a weird Simpsons prediction. This is next level. Not only do we have similarities within certain episodes that you could try to, say it's just a big coincidence or whatever, but here, it just so happens that the dude who was part of one of the only successful missions on this sub that imploded down to the Titanic, it just so happens that back in 1998, I think it was, it was years and years ago, this guy wrote an episode of The Simpsons. It was the last episode that he worked on, and it dealt with a leak within a submarine. I'll go ahead and read you the description of the episode. After Homer nearly causes the nuclear plant to go into meltdown by putting a donut in the reactor core to enlarge it, he is fired by Mr. Burns. While at home, he sees a recruitment advertisement on television for the Naval Reserve and decides to enlist with Moe, Barney, and Apu, deciding to join him. Meanwhile, Bart purchases an earring, which an outraged Homer confiscates. Homer and the others are placed on a nuclear sub. While participating in military exercise, Homer unintentionally has the captain fired out of a torpedo tube and pilots the sub into Russian waters, which is seen by the United States government as an attempt to defect. The event creates a political cataclysm, an altercation between the USA and Russia, with a Russian representative stating to a USA representative at a UN meeting about the event that the Soviet Union will be pleased to offer amnesty to a wayward vessel, leading to the revelation that the Soviet Union is, in fact, never truly dissolved. Complete with the Berlin Wall rising from the ground, Soviet troops and tanks appearing on the streets, and a zombie-like Vladimir Lenin rising from his tomb in Moscow. The Soviet Union will be pleased to offer amnesty to your vessel. Nuclear war is anticipated until the U.S. Navy drops the depth charges on Homer's sub, aiming either to destroy it or to force it to the surface. Then, the explosions cause a pinhole leak in the submarine's hull, but Homer uses Bart's earring to plug the leak and saves the submarine. So, I know that everyone is passing around this video of Homer getting stuck in that little sub, and like I say, I guess you could say that's weird. But what's really weird to me is that one of the Simpsons writers not only wrote this sub, this exact sub that imploded, but the very last episode that he ever wrote of The Simpsons, over a decade ago was about a submarine that had a leak that Homer winded up plugging and he survived. So you let me know if you think that's weird. But while we're here, I'll let you hear a little bit more from Mike Reese about his experience aboard this sub, and then I'll be right back to close out this video.
What was it like? And you were in the very vessel we're talking about now, right? So explain the conditions.
Yes, it's the interior of the sub is about the same size as a minivan, and you have to picture just tearing all the seats out of a van. There's no furniture there. There's just a nice piece of carpeting, and
Where do you sit? There are seats.
There's no seats. The walls are curved steel, and you just sit on the floor with your feet stretched out. It's actually very comfortable. I keep hearing it's cramped.
Is it only that one large round window to see out of?
There is just this window, literally the size of the window on your washing machine.
Is that right? And so obviously you would take turns if it was fully populated. 5 individuals, I think, at a maximum could fit?
Right. There are 5
How many
people.
were when you went down?
It's always 5.
Okay.
It's 3 passengers, the pilot, and then a scientist. This is a serious mission. There's always research being done, and the scientist works for the company and is trained and knows how to do everything too.
How close did you get to the wreckage of the Titanic itself?
I don't know the distance. I'm 50 feet, 100 feet away. It was
pretty close.
Crystal clear.
Yeah.
And it looked just like itself. It looked the way it does in the movies.
The reason why I asked, Mike, I was intrigued by some of the possibilities that are floating out there now, what happened to this vessel, that it could have gotten caught on something from the wreckage. Is that even possible?
I really don't think so. Of all the things that could have happened, because in the most perfect mission, if they have their full 3 hours, you only have 3 hours on the ocean floor, and then you've got to resurf it. It has nothing to do with oxygen. It's just you have to get back by daylight so your ship can find you and take you aboard.
I said it on Twitter last night, and I will repeat it here. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't already, but I said that I know that the universe works in mysterious ways, but some of the weird little details that I've been discovering surrounding this story, it almost seems too unreal to be true. From this woman whose great-great-grandparents died on the Titanic and now her husband died exploring the Titanic, to the richest man in Pakistan that investigates alien life being somehow connected to King Charles and being part of a charity that got exposed for human... I can't even say the word. Oh man, there's so much more that we got to get to, folks. There's so much weird stuff here. But as of right now, I want you all to let me know what you think about this. It almost feels sometimes like we're living in a simulation. Some of this stuff is just too odd to be true. But I guess sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Let me know your thoughts about all of this, though, down in the comments below. I am really looking forward to what you all think about this. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and I will be talking to you all in the next video.